Hi, and welcome back to The Lowest Crime, the podcast where we explore the darkest, most complex and haunting criminal cases in the Netherlands. I'm Eline, and today's episode revolves around a mystery that has remained unsolved for more than 3 decades. A case without a known killer, without a known motive, and perhaps most tragically, without a known victim. Please be aware that this episode contains descriptions of prolonged abuse, starvation, torture, and the murder of a minor, so listener discretion is advised. And as always, I try my very best to bring you all the known facts, but specifically in this case, I found a few conflicting details that make it hard to be 100% sure what happened, so please bear with me. This is the story of a girl found murdered in a forest on Christmas Day in 1990. She had been abused and starved before her death, and then discarded like garbage at the edge of a wooded path. To this day, her identity is unknown. She is remembered only as the Teteringen Girl. It was the early morning of December 25th, 1990, in the Cadettenkamp forest near Teteringen, a village on the outskirts of Breda in the Dutch province of North Brabant. The forest, tucked away just off the A27 highway, was a quiet rural area known mostly to locals. A gravel path called the Galgenstraat wound its way through the trees, a path so obscure you wouldn't find it unless you already knew where it was. That Christmas morning, several people were out for a walk, among them local resident Joost Schunken. He and others had noticed a rolled-up bundle just off the path, something that had been laying there for at least 2 days. Most just assumed it was discarded garbage. But Joost's curiosity got the better of him. He approached and began unwrapping the layers. The rug had a gold-colored pattern over shades of brown and beige. It was old and worn, but it was clear that it had once been a beautiful, perhaps even cherished piece. Inside it was a second layer, a green felt blanket, lint-covered and tightly wrapped, and underneath that was a final brown blanket, tied shut with a nylon cord, and along its edge was a unique cross-stitched embroidery resembling the letter V. As Joost peeled back the final layer, he was confronted with something he could have never imagined. Inside the bundle was the body of a young woman, or even a young girl. The police were immediately called to the scene. The dump site, a wooded slope near the Cadettenkamp forest, was less than a 30-minute drive from the Belgian border. It was an unlikely place to stumble across by accident. Investigators quickly concluded that whoever had left the girl here must have known the area well. Possibly they had lived, worked, or camped nearby. The position of the body and the depth into the forest suggested that she had been carried at least 800 meters from the road, likely from a vehicle parked at a nearby parking lot. That vehicle will become a crucial part of the early investigation. The girl was young, believed to be between 15 and 18 years old, though initial reports from Dutch police estimated her closer to 15 to 17 years old. She was about 163 centimeters tall, about 5'3", with an emaciated frame. Her skin tone was described as olive. She had full lips, natural brows, and white, cavity-free teeth. Her hair looked like it had been cut recently, but not by a professional. It was choppy, uneven, and crudely hacked off, maybe even with kitchen shears. Her hair had been very dark brown, nearly black, with color changing to mid-brown or auburn near the top. The girl was dressed in a red Carine brand turtleneck sweater, size large, way too big on her emaciated frame. She was also wearing burgundy corduroy pants. The turtleneck sweater gave crucial information, as Carine was a Belgian clothing brand not available in the Netherlands at the time, giving some indication about her possible origins. The clothes were remarkably clean, no dirt, no blood nowhere. She wore no underwear, no socks, and no shoes. Her feet were bare, size 36 European. The clothes were so clean that investigators concluded that she had likely been dressed post-mortem. The autopsy revealed something far more horrifying than a single act of violence. The girl had died slowly and painfully from starvation and exhaustion. Her body, found curled into itself beneath the layers of blankets and the faded oriental rug, was severely emaciated. The marks on her body told the rest of the story. Her skin showed fresh bite marks and extensive cigarette burns, some fresh, others old. Her wrist and ankles bore ligature marks, consistent with being bound tightly, perhaps even to a chair. Some say that she also had pressure sores on her buttocks, indicating that she had spent weeks sitting in the same position without care or movement, but this has not been officially confirmed. She had been tortured, not just once but repeatedly over a long period of time. The abuse was systematic and prolonged, and it ultimately starved the life out of her. In the immediate aftermath of the discovery in December 1990, one of the first concrete clues emerged not from the forest itself, but from a nearby parking lot located approximately 800 meters east from where the girl's body had been dumped. At the Galgenveld lot, near the A27 highway, investigators found a white Peugeot 305 with Belgian license plates. It appeared to have broken down and been abandoned. The presence of this vehicle, so near the isolated dump site, suggested intimate local knowledge by the perpetrators. It is speculated that the suspects would have had to get out of the vehicle, descend a steep slope with the body, and then walk almost 800 meters through the forest to dispose of the body near the camp. A witness told police that they had seen 2 or 3 men, described as Moroccan, abandoning the vehicle after it supposedly broke down, and then getting picked up by another Belgian registered car. The timing, location, and Belgian origins of the vehicles immediately raised suspicion. The police began tracing ownership records. The car belonged to a man in Antwerp, and as the investigation expanded, a number of Moroccan families living in the area came into focus. This was the beginning of what became known internally as the Antwerp lead. One man was soon identified as having picked up the stranded man from the Galgenveld parking lot that December. He stated that he'd received a call about a breakdown and had simply gone to help, giving the man a ride back to Belgium. He insisted that he had no idea what had happened near the forest. To Dutch investigators, however, the connection was too close to ignore. Within days, their family home in Antwerp was raided. The man was interrogated extensively, but he insisted that he had no knowledge of the victim. Eventually, DNA samples confirmed that he was not related to the girl, and no evidence ever tied him to her murder. Despite the intense investigation, the police were never able to identify the individuals directly responsible for the girl's death. The 3 potential suspects or witnesses were identified through sketches. The first suspect or witness was a man then about 20 to 24 years old. He was described as white, with blonde straight hair with a parting, approximately 175 centimeters tall, wearing grey clothing. A second man was described as having tanned dark skin, about 65 years old at the time, stocky build, dark hair, and about 150 centimeters tall, wearing a blue suit. And lastly, a woman with tanned dark skin, around 62 years old, also about 150 centimeters tall, slender, short black hair, and wearing deep purple clothing. These main suspects are still unidentified. In 2001, 11 years after the Teteringen Girl was found, a strikingly similar case emerged in Frankfurt, Germany. A girl's body was discovered floating in the main river on July 31st. She too was never identified. She was slightly younger, around 13 years old, but the similarities were hard to ignore. They had the same height, about 160 centimeters tall, signs of prolonged abuse and systematic torture, starvation, weighing only 38 kilograms at the time of death, and, just as the Teteringen Girl, many cigarette burns. Both victims had been wrapped in cloth, the Dutch girl in blankets and a worn oriental rug, the Frankfurt girl in a tightly bound duvet weighed down with a parasol base manufactured in the Netherlands. The German girl had suffered perforated lungs and spleen, broken ribs, and extensive old injuries from years of abuse. The case of het Teteringen meisje remains unsolved. 15 years passed, without any further leads. In 2005, the case was reopened by a cold case team armed with modern forensic tools. Investigators hoped that the preserved remains might still hold answers. DNA was successfully extracted from her bones and teeth. It showed that she was of North African descent, most likely Moroccan, but she was not listed in any missing persons database in the Netherlands, Belgium, or Morocco. Isotope testing provided further clues. This technique analyzed chemical elements absorbed by the body through food and water, offering a map of where the person has lived. The results indicated that this girl had spent at least 5 years of her life in Western Europe, specifically in parts of the Netherlands, Belgium, France, or northern Germany. Despite these breakthroughs, her identity remained unknown. Investigators reached out to Moroccan Dutch communities, hoping someone might recognize her face or clothing, but no one did. Some speculated that she may have come from southern Morocco, a region less represented among Moroccan immigrants in the Netherlands, making it harder for locals to place her. This raised darker possibilities. Was she trafficked? Was she smuggled into Europe as a child, then passed around hidden from official records, until the final years of her life were consumed by captivity and abuse? So many questions, and so few answers. One of the more disturbing theories in the case emerged from a detail that seemed minor at first: a red thread, tied around one of the cloths wrapped around the girl's body. To some, this might have seemed like an insignificant detail, but to others familiar with voodoo practices, it raised alarm bells. Because some people have claimed that voodoo rituals involving red threads are known in West African spiritual traditions, often used to instill fear or maintain control over women trafficked into prostitution. They stated that since the 1980s, Nigerian criminal networks have used voodoo rituals to bind young women into silence and submission before smuggling them into Europe, particularly into the sex trade in the Netherlands, Belgium, and Italy. According to them, these networks often target girls with no formal identification. Victims are commonly branded with cigarette burns, a symbolic gesture of domination and punishment. I do want to stress, though, that these are all unverified speculations. There is, however, something to say for the theory that she was trafficked. The Teteringen Girl's injuries were consistent with this profile, and her oversized clothing, a red ribbed turtleneck sweater in size L and red corduroy pants from the Belgian brand Carine, also suggested that she may not have chosen her garments. They were too large for her, adding to the impression that she had no autonomy over her life. Back in 1991, police said that they had investigated prostitution rings in Dutch and Belgian cities, but the results led nowhere. No one knew her, or more hauntingly, no one dared to speak. By 2006, the case had seemingly run out of momentum again. Despite the DNA extraction and the isotope data, authorities failed to re-engage the public in a meaningful way. Cold case files were gathering dust. But one area where there may still be hope lies in commercial DNA genealogy, a field that has revolutionized cold case investigations across the world. While traditional police databases fail to produce any DNA matches for the Teteringen Girl, private platforms like GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA offer a different approach. They can identify distant relatives by comparing DNA voluntarily uploaded by members of the public. This is, for instance, how the famous Golden State Killer was eventually caught in 2018, decades after his crimes. And it's also how over 30 unidentified bodies have been given back their names in the United States, thanks to the efforts of the DNA Doe Project. In the Netherlands, this approach is still new, but amateur genealogists are pushing for change. They are hoping to upload the girl's DNA profile to GEDmatch and similar databases to check for genetic relatives, however distant. But sadly, to date, the Dutch police have not confirmed whether they are pursuing this route. For now, all we know is that this girl died alone in the cold December dark in 1990, and now still lies in an unnamed grave in the cemetery near Teteringen. But she is not forgotten. Locals continue to visit the site. They light candles, they place flowers and pause in silence. Her headstone bears no name, only a simple Dutch inscription. Doordat we je gedenken, krijg jij het eeuwig leven. By remembering you, you will receive eternal life. It's a quiet but powerful reminder that although she does not have a name yet, people still care. She was not just a victim. She was once a daughter, perhaps a sister, possibly a friend. She may have laughed, played, danced, or dreamed of a different life before someone took it all away. This is one of those cases that offers no comfort and no closure, only questions. And perhaps the most haunting of all, how many more girls are out there, hidden, abused, silenced, waiting to be found or remembered? The case of het Teteringen meisje remains unsolved. No arrests, no charges, no confirmed suspects. Her identity remains unknown, despite comparisons to similar cases in Frankfurt, despite modern DNA testing, and despite multiple witness sightings. If you are listening and think you may know something, even if it seems insignificant, please don't stay silent. You can contact the Dutch National Police Cold Case Team through their website, or, if you are located outside the Netherlands, reach out to your local authorities and reference the unidentified female homicide victim found in Teteringen, the Netherlands, on December 25, 1990. And consider uploading your DNA profile to JetMatch or Family Tree DNA, making it available for law enforcement matching. Sometimes, the smallest match, a third cousin, a great aunt, can be the missing link to restore someone's name. Every person deserves to be remembered, and every victim deserves the dignity of a name. Thank you all so much for listening. If you found this an interesting episode, please consider subscribing or leaving a comment. You can find any images related to the case on the Lowest Crime Instagram account. Thank you all so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.